Early America, Section 5 with Ms. Lashy. The Louisiana Purchase. It was purchased from France in 1803. It doubled the size of the United States at the time, and it increased concern over the number of slave versus non-slave states. At the time, we had about a 50% divide where the North was non-slave holding and the South was slave holding. If we look over here at the map real quick, this is the Louisiana Purchase here in the kind of like pinky color in the middle, and it was purchased from France. It has parts of Louisiana and goes up through what most of us call the Great Plains and part of the Midwest over here. The Civil War. It was a war fought between northern and southern states over states' rights from 1861 to 1865. The most prominent state right issue during and prior to the start of the war was the right for states to allow slavery. The North won and reunited the Union. The 13th Amendment. It is an amendment to the U.S. Constitution. It abolished slavery and made it illegal to be an indentured servant in the United States. So an indentured servant is somebody who agreed to work for somebody for a certain number of years for free if they paid for their passage to come to the United States. So if they paid for their travel to the U.S., then they would, let's say, work for 5-10 years for free until that debt was paid off for the passage to get here to the United States. And then after that, they would be free to do what they want. But they were essentially very similar to a slave at that time because they weren't given freedom. They were indentured to the people who paid for them to come to the United States. The 14th Amendment. It is an amendment to the U.S. Constitution. It guarantees that all people are born in the United States are citizens and are protected by equal rights. The 15th Amendment. It is an amendment to the U.S. Constitution. It guarantees citizens the right to vote regardless of their race, color, or previous servitude. It directly targeted the right of African American men to vote. It did not address the right of women to vote. So after the 15th Amendment, if you were white or black or Hispanic, you were allowed to vote. It did not address women, but at the same time, it also did not address Native Americans. So Native Americans and women were not allowed to vote. The exception with the Native Americans, they were granted citizenship and could vote if they gave up their tribal traditions and culture, but a lot of them didn't, so it still excluded women and Native Americans as well. Alexis de Tocqueville. He was a Frenchman who traveled to the United States and wrote about how democracy worked in America. He said that it worked due to egalitarianism, liberty, populism, laissez-faire, and individualism. So the reason why Alexis de Tocqueville came to the United States was they were trying to figure out how to make democracy work in France. And so they sent him here in the 1830s to observe and see why everything was working. And he said that it worked because of these 5 principles: egalitarianism, liberty, populism, laissez-faire, and individualism. Egalitarianism. According to Alexis de Tocqueville, all men are equal. There are no social classes or no noble classes. So he said, in the United States, we didn't have kings or nobles or knights or peasants. We were all on the same playing field. Laissez-faire. According to Alexis de Tocqueville, the government stays out of the economy and does not intervene. The government is hands-off in terms of the economy. So the government doesn't touch anything. They don't pass regulations. They don't do anything. The economy is just free to run all by itself. Whether it's good or it's bad, the government does not get involved. And that's laissez-faire, where the government is hands-off. Liberty. According to Alexis de Tocqueville, people have the freedom to decide their own actions and to do what they want to do. So you have a choice. You can choose your own path. You can choose to graduate high school or not graduate high school. You can choose to go to college or not. You could choose to go to trade school. You can choose who your friends are or who are not your friends. You can choose where you want to live. So your life is all about choices, and that's liberty. Individualism. According to Alexis de Tocqueville, people have the ability to choose the people that they surrounded themselves with. So you have a choice of who your friends are and who you're going to be around, and that's called individualism. Populism. According to Alexei de Tocqueville, everyone participates in government. Types of participation can be voting and attending government meetings. This is an important aspect of the 5 things that Alexei de Tocqueville believed that made America work, because the people are actually involved in their government and they're actually playing a role in the decisions that their government are making by voting and participating in the government itself. And that is populism. E pluribus unum. It's the country's unofficial motto. It translates to out of many comes one, in reference to the many colonies joining together to make one nation. The motto can be found on the national seal and other official government documents. This seal here on the right, this is actually the presidential seal of the United States, and if you look just above the eagle's head, we can see it says E pluribus unum. And of course that means out of many comes one. In God we trust. This is the official motto of the United States. It was voted on in 1956. The most common place to find it is on U.S. currency or money. If you look at this quarter to the right, we can see to the right of George Washington's head, it says, "In God we trust." And so that's where you'll find it usually is on the front side of coins, and it's also on dollar bills. The reason why this became the official motto of the United States in the 1950s was we were fighting communism at the time. And we haven't learned about that yet, so don't panic if you don't understand what that is. But communist countries don't really follow a religion or don't really believe in a God. So by putting in God we trust as our official motto, it was supposed to be taking a stand against communism here in the United States. So again, in God we trust is the official motto of the United States.